Hello?
Hello, Zoila?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. This is Izzy from MMA Jam Live. Did we catch you at a good time?
Yeah, good.
Okay, I appreciate you taking time out of your evening to chat with us. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, let's get right into it. You've been fighting professionally for about 5.5 years. Can you talk a little bit about how your MMA journey began and what led to the decision to travel down that path?
Oh, man. I've been an athlete I've told this story a bunch of times. I've been an athlete my entire life. So, as soon as I was able to walk, my dad threw me in just about every sport you can possibly think of, and I did Taekwondo when I was younger as well. He had us do that. But as I got older, I had to stick to a few different things. So I ended up sticking to like cross country, soccer, and track and field. So going through high school, I played a little bit of college ball, and it just wasn't. I've been playing it for so long that it just wasn't enough for me. I was coming to a point where when I was playing games, I was just kind of bored with the game that I just started slide tackling girls and just using a lot of aggression over skill than anything because I was bored with it. So I ended up getting hurt in a little pickup game, and then after I came back from being hurt, I just kind of I was bored with it, and I was like, I need something else. I need another outlet. I need something that'll have drive in again, So I looked into boxing. I took like a little boxing class at a local gym, and that's where I ended up meeting the guys that I started to train and fight for in Fresno, and from that point on, it was just straight. I was training a lot of Muay Thai, and within like a year, I got my first pro MMA fight, and then I never stopped from that point on.
Now, what do you think led to that boredom? Was it a lack of physicality, a lack of competition, or what do you think led to that boredom?
I don't think it was a lack of competition. It was just for doing it for so long. I started playing soccer when I was able to. I think I was like 6 or 7 when I started playing soccer, and it was just years and years of soccer. I was bored with it, and and I've always been a competitor, and I get bored of things pretty quickly. So, I mean, after playing it for that many years, it just I just wanted something else. I wanted something else that I can be competitive in, and find a drive again because I was just getting pretty bored with it.
And you headed straight, head first into it. In taking no amateur fights, you traveled down the road less taken. What were the factors behind making such a decision not to take any amateur fights?
When I started, it was hard to actually get amateur fights. I had a couple of smokers, and the smokers that I did really well. I knocked one girl down with like a head kick, and I've always been an explosive athlete. So being a woman in the sport like that is kind of intimidating for people, and I think a lot of it had to do with that. So not only that, but the coach that I had at the time, Jasper, he was more than sure that I'd be able to hold my own fighting in a pro fight. So he just kind of threw me in there, with the Wolves, and it turned out to be all right for me.
So even as early as 2009, women were still having difficulties getting fights in different promotions.
Mhm. Well, and not at that time. It was more of an amateur type of thing. So, he wasn't able, for some reason or other, wasn't able to find me any amateur fights. So, and then there was a lot of local shows going around that were putting on a lot of pro fights, and it was easier to find pro fights. So, he kind of just threw me in there like that. I don't really know the details too much, but I was just there to fight. It didn't really matter to me.
It's interesting because in the past year, we've interviewed several amateur women's fighters and male fighters, and they all say the same thing you said, that even to this day, it's difficult for them to get any amateur experience.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, it's just different everywhere. Like when I lived in the Midwest, I was surprised. Like every fight, every show out there had tons and tons of amateurs in it, and I was just like, where the hell were all these amateurs when I started fighting? But it's I don't know. It depends on where you are, where you are, what you're doing, and who you are, I guess. So.
Definitely. Now, you made your pro debut back on February 13th of 2009 against Karina Hallinan.
Uh-huh.
winning by split decision. As far as the atmosphere, the crowd, and the fight, what do you remember about that night?
Oh man, that night I thought I was going to be I thought I was going to be really nervous because there was cameras out everywhere, there was a crowd, you know. I played college ball underneath the lights, so I was used to you know, a little bit of attention like that, but nothing. I thought it was going to be completely different because, you know, it was about me and somebody else. It wasn't about like an entire team. So I was kind of I don't know. I thought it would be a little more weird than it was, but I had got prepared for that fight. Like, I was so ready for that fight that by the time I got out there, none of that really played in. Like, I didn't really hear the crowd. I didn't really pay attention to anything else that was going on besides the girl that was standing in front of me. So that's when I really knew that, you know, it was something that I could focus on and something that I could really do, because I was so completely focused and ready for that fight that there was no. I mean, of course, there's always going to be nerves but as an athlete, you know, I think the person that I am, I've always done well with stuff like that. So it was a surreal experience, you know, the adrenaline, everything that came along with it. I loved it.
Now, is tuning out the crowd something you've carried along throughout your whole career, like just tuning out the crowd and just focusing on your opponent?
Yeah, it's usually just focusing on who's in front of me. As soon as I step out and I can see where my opponent is, I've always been completely focused on who I'm fighting, you know, and who's in front of me. So I mean, the crowd's there, you know. I try not to ignore them because you know that they are I am who I am because of them too, you know. But you know, a lot of them understand that I'm there to get a job done, and by the time I'm over, then I'll acknowledge everybody. But other than that, I've always been pretty good in focusing on the task at hand.
Definitely. Now, in 2010, you had a fierce rivalry with Miesha Tate. Now, we won't get into the details of that. You know, prior to the match, you had plenty of words exchanged, but with the way that MMA has evolved to the point of having to engage in such a back and forth in order to pique interest in a fight, what are your thoughts on promoting a fight in that manner?
I don't care for it so much, you know. I never did, and even at the beginning, even when the little grudge matches that I had between people, it was never really. I never really understood them, you know, and why they started. It was more of a he said, she said type of deal, and I never liked it. I never thought it was a professional way to go about it, you know. But it's a fight, you know. Everybody does it their way. I don't prefer it to be like that at all, you know. I'd rather just go in there and you know, it's a competition, and I'm an athlete, and I like to keep it professional like that. But some people don't, you know. If that's the way that they got to fight, then that's the way that they have to fight. But I frown upon it. I really don't like that. But you know, it's here, and it's not going to go anywhere. So it's just the way that it is.
I wanted to hear your thoughts. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on, you know, Jose Aldo recently had a stare down with Chad Mendes, and he pushed him, which is something Jose Aldo never did before. And he came out on record and said he did it just to promote the event. I mean, that makes it so difficult to understand because you don't know what's reality and what's just for the cameras. I mean, at that point, I guess it's just, it gets confusing to me as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole thing where you pretend to really hate that person?
Yeah, you know what? It was pretty much the same thing that I had with that. I mean, I'm cool with Miesha now, but right after we fought, she was like, and you know, all that stuff was just for the ratings, right? That to me was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this entire time, all that trash that you were talking. I'm the type of person that, like, if you're gonna talk some trash to me, you know, like, I grew up like that. Like, you better be able to freaking back it up, which she did, but in a sense, it's like, why even start with all that drama? Like, for me, I don't like it, you know, and for him to do that, you know, I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's professional. But I guess, and some people say that it's good to build fights. That's good for them, I guess. Just, I don't like it.
See, that's crazy to me because if I was in your shoes and then that happened to me, I'd be like, oh, get out of my face. You pissed me off for the last X amount of weeks, and now you're saying, oh, by the way, we're friends now, so let's go out and have a burger together. Yeah. You know, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Mentally, I couldn't. I would be out of it.
it's tough, but for me, like being in the sport and seeing, I mean, that type of stuff has happened to me a few times. So it's just, you know, it's just about, for me, it's just about letting it go, because I try not to hold on to stuff like that, because there's no reason to, you know. If they beat me, they beat me. If they didn't, then they didn't. You know, if I'll end up fighting them again, then I'll get my shot again, you know. But it really, I just kind of let things pass, and whatever is next, and that's what's next. But I try not to worry about the past so much than the present.
Speaking of rivalries, you also had a brief one with Michelle Ode, who you ended up defeating. She had an injury, obviously. Now, fans of hers, I remember fans of hers blaming the loss on the injury, the humidity, and several other factors in the fight. With many fighters blaming external elements for losses, what do you think? Why do you think it's becoming increasingly rare for fighters to simply say, you know, I lost?
You know, and nobody wants to say that they lost. You know, even when I lose a fight, I lose a fight. You know, I have reasons for why I didn't do so well, but you know, that night that person was better than me, regardless what happens. You know, if it goes to the judge's scorecard, guess what? Hey, that's my fault for letting it go to the judge's scorecard. If I end up getting hurt, you know, if I end up slipping and busting my elbow and I can't get back up, or my knee, you know, then I lost that fight, you know. That's just the way that I've always viewed it, and I don't know, you know. I just see it as sometimes that there are excuses, and there are certain things that, you know, that happen. There's freak accidents that happen, but you know, I'm not okay with people using some of that stuff as excuses. But hey, it happens, and it's been happening a lot. So what can you do about it? You can't stop people from making excuses.
You know, to be honest, I'm okay with it. I'm not bothered by it, but the average MMA fan is gonna just tear into you if you have something remotely resembling an excuse. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, it's the fan base here is not as forgiving as, say, baseball, basketball, and any other sport. It's brutal.
Oh, not even close. The MMA fans are the meanest, like, by far. Like, a lot of them don't. And the thing about it, too, is a lot of them aren't really knowledgeable in the sport. You know, they just kind of go by what they see, and they want to rip you a new one just because, you know, you can't see them, you don't know who they are. So, you know, and not only that, but fighters are the type of people that have, you know, that have, a lot of them anyways, have hot blood. So if you tell them something, or if you say something about them after they've been working so hard to do something, a lot of them will get angry about it, you know, and get a little upset. You'll get under their skin, but you know, it's just the name of the game, I guess.
Exactly. Now, one of my all-time favorite Zoila moments came at Bellator 23. In that event, you were viewed as a stepping stone of sorts for Rosie Sexton, but you wound up scoring a vicious KO in round one anyway. What was your mindset like going into that fight, and did it ever bother you that you weren't getting much of a chance? You weren't being given much of a chance to win that fight?
No, not at all. Like, that fight by far was the most confident that I've ever been walking into a fight. Not only that, but I was such an underdog in that fight that it was just, you know, I had no nerves going into that fight. I knew that I was more than ready. I was mentally, physically, emotionally, everything about me was more than ready, and I was so happy that, and it just didn't bother me that people had me as an underdog. I was happy to go in there as her warm-up fight, you know, because more than anything, I was so confident that it was not going to end well for her, and it didn't, you know, and going in there like that and knowing that it just proved that, you know, I'm a force to be reckoned with, and I kind of stamped my name in women's MMA at that point.
Yeah, you know, I remember that fight like it was yesterday, and I remember people saying, you know, well, she didn't have a chance. I mean, it's just a warm-up. And stuff like that. Obviously, you know, you never want to be seen as a stepping stone, but, man, it had to have been really sweet to quiet that crowd up.
Oh, it was amazing, you know, but even then people were talking, you know. If there's any bit of space for somebody to say something, they will. Like, there was even a point where somebody said, "Oh, well, Rosie ended up running into the cage, so she banged her head, and then that's how she ended up getting the knee." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, who says that kind of stuff?"
Oh,
like,
boy.
There's always an excuse, right? There's always an excuse. that type of stuff is just people are just crazy. They're out of their mind sometimes, and but to be viewed as a stepping stone and actually like to silence them like that with just like a flat line, it was an amazing feeling for me. So it was good.
I have to be honest with you, Zoila. If it gets to the point where your fans are making outrageous excuses for you, they love you. I think there's no doubt about that.
Mm. Now,
that fight with Sexton was the beginning of a very successful run for you. Shortly after you entered the Bellator Season 3 115-pound tournament, you defeated Jessica Penne, Jessica Aguilar, and Megumi Fuji in succession to win the tournament and win the 115-pound title. Your win over Fuji was also her first career loss. In looking back, what did it mean to you to become the first and to this day only Bellator strawweight champion?
You know, then at that moment when I beat Megumi, I was just glad it was all over. Like, you know, I had worked so hard, the weight cuts, everything about coming up into that tournament and that fight was just the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through as an athlete in my entire life. You know, it was like the craziest, 4 months of my life, you know. So to be able to get through that was a victory on its own. To be able to get through that on the top of the world was just one of the best experiences I've ever had. So I'm sorry, I forgot your question when I was going through that. What was the question again?
In looking back, what did it mean to you? Sorry, to become the first and to this day only Bellator strawweight champion?
Exactly what it was. You know, it was just one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. You know, to make it through all of that and just showed that all the hard work that I put in had paid off. So it was one of the happiest moments in my life for sure.
Definitely, and just to defeat those three, just the fact that you defeated those three names was just incredible to me. I mean, you know, Aguilar is arguably the top 115-pound fighter today. Megumi Fuji is obviously a legend, you know, in women's MMA, and Jessica Penne was at one point the Invicta champion, you know, so it's just an incredible accomplishment for you, and that's right up there with your win over Rosie Sexton for me, personally.
Yeah, well, no, at the time, Rosie Sexton was number one in the world at 125 pounds and was right up there to win that tournament with Megumi Fuji. So to be able to do that in a matter of like 5 months and all in 1 year, it was I wouldn't have believed it unless I absolutely saw it too. You know, just to be able to go through that, like I didn't really realize what I did until people started naming what I had done, like when I was in interviews or when they would put me in like a magazine or whenever they started like listing all the stuff that I did and what these people did before I beat them and you know, and how long, like up until that point I had only been fighting and training for about 18 months, you know, and to be able to accomplish all that when all these girls had years and years of experience, you know, and I just shot onto the scene and just started, you know, going crazy, you know. I kind of just went through these girls like I had been there for years, you know, and like it was my turn. But you know, it was just nice to actually see what I was able to do in such a short amount of time. So it was good for me. I really liked it all a lot.
Well, what's interesting and something that I forgot to add, right before you defeated Rosie Sexton, you had that win over Michelle Ode. So that's and she's obviously fighting in the next Invicta card. And then before the Miesha Tate fight, you defeated Jessica Rakoczy, who fought on season 18 of The Ultimate Fighter. She was a finalist. So it's actually you went through a stretch there where you were just fighting nothing but great fighters, and to only come out there, you know, with one loss. I mean, that's just something to behold.
Yep. It was a pretty it was pretty fun year for me that year, that's for sure.
Now you're pretty much, and I'm not even joking about this, you're pretty much like the Kenny Florian of women's MMA, having fought at 115, 125, and 135. Where do you feel more comfortable at, and where should we expect to see you at in the future?
Well, 35 was pretty big for me. I feel good and strong at 35, but 25 I feel a lot more comfortable. I still have to cut for 25, so it's still a stretch. I feel a lot stronger, but I'm still, for some reason or another, I'm not the biggest girl at 25. When it comes to 15 is where I feel I'm usually the cuts are really hard, but I feel absolutely just in way better shape than any other weight class that I've ever fought in, because I'm usually doing a lot of cardio for those fights, and I'm a lot faster, and I feel so much stronger than most of the girls than all the girls I've ever fought at 15. So but right there in between, if there was a weight class for 120, that would be the perfect weight class for me, but there's not, so between 15 and 25 is where I'd want to be, but lately I've been fighting at 25. We're gonna for this next year coming up, we're gonna be making a drop to 15 before I go back into MMA. So so look for me to make that run at 15 again.
Outstanding. Now, you recently, earlier this year, you made your Muay Thai debut. How are preparations different than that of MMA, and is Muay Thai something you'll be focusing on a little more than MMA in the future?
Oh man, the preparation for that is a little different. I don't have to do any wrestling or grappling. Though I'd like to try to keep up on that, because I am going back and forth from MMA to Muay Thai. But this year, when I moved back to California, it was just to mainly focus on my Muay Thai, to get back to having the confidence that I've always had in striking. Because when I moved away, I kind of got away from it a little, and my confidence and my strength has always been in striking. When I moved away, I did get a lot of good groundwork in, so I'm pretty confident in that now as well. But my confidence has always been in my striking, because I've always been an explosive athlete, and I hit hard for girls. So when you can start putting that on other girls, they don't like it. So to be able to but actually go to Muay Thai and start being able to put things together and pick my shots, it's going to transfer over a lot better and when I go back to MMA. Because when I was fighting MMA before, it was more like, okay, this girl's going to want to take me down. She's going to rush me to the cage. So I was like throwing one or two heavy shots, compared to being able to throw, like a good combination and actually landing. So I went back to Muay Thai to try to, to fix that, and I have, So by the time I transition back to MMA, it's going to be a completely different fighter than when people saw before I left MMA. I had two Muay Thai fights. I'm 2-0 right now. The next fight will be in October, possibly, and that'll be for a WBC Muay Thai title, national title. And then we're hoping to shoot for a WBC world title before the year's over, before I actually shoot back into MMA. So I'm looking to do a lot of big things in Muay Thai right now before I actually get back into MMA, because I don't really want to jump back and forth. But for now, we're just focusing on my striking, and then by the time next year comes around, we're gonna focus on making that drop to 115 again, and getting up there on top of the world again. So that's the plan for now.
Your fans will never forgive me if I didn't ask this question. You say your next fight is in October. Is there any way, any streaming information, any way we can view that fight?
I'm almost positive that if I'm able to get on this card that they're trying to put together for me, it'll be I think on like Fox Sports Prime or Prime Ticket or something like that. I'm sure that they'll be able to, but we'll see. Hopefully.
And ideally, when would you like to get back into MMA, like the MMA cage? Ideally, if you're talking about a time frame.
By the time next year hits, in January or February would be perfect. I really want to finish the year off with Muay Thai, because that's what I've always wanted to do before I even started MMA, and I just kind of got pointed towards the whole MMA route. I really wanted to do Muay Thai and to be able to do it right now and to try to accomplish these things that I really wanted to do before will be an amazing dream. It's being fulfilled for me anyways before I actually go back into MMA. So by the time next year comes around, January, February, MMA will be on my radar.
Well, I'm very glad you're getting to live a dream. It's surprisingly hard for someone to be able to live their dream in their lifetime, so I'm glad that's working out for you. Before we let you go, Zoila, you're very welcome. Before we let you go, can you remind your fans where we can find you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any social media you have?
Oh, man. Everything I have is under Zoila Frausto, so that's Zoila Frausto, Frausto. My Twitter is at Zoila Frausto. My Instagram is at Zoila Frausto, and then you can find my Facebook is Zoila Frausto. You just search for that. There's only one. There should be only one. So and that's about it. But I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter not so much, but I check that every now and then. But most of the time it's a lot of Instagram and Facebook.
Well, I'm so glad that you put that out there. You're finding you is so easy, even I can do it. And I'm very jealous that you're able to get your actual name. If I wanted to take out Israel Gonzalez on Twitter or anything, I would have to have like the number 7456321 because I'm probably like one of 200 million Israel Gonzalezes in the world.
Yeah, there's not too many Zoila Fraustos, that's for sure.
That is a good thing. There could only be one.
Yeah, exactly.
Zoila, it was a tremendous honor having you on. I can't tell you how much this means to us here. Thank you so much. We definitely have to do this again. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and you have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.